This is Nate Booker, and you're listening to the Inquisitive Minds podcast.
When I put this out, it's going to be all your face because I smiled too big and I'm lacking too much in the front there. So
This is
no,
the Inquisitive Minds podcast.
hey, thank you for tuning in the Inquisitive Minds podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Smith. With me today, we have a veteran, a father, and a general manager for a nationwide expanding company. We'll go with. Welcome to the program, Nate Booker.
Hey, what's going on, John?
Nate, how you doing? Do me a favor, speak in the mic a little bit more for me.
Got you. How's that?
That's perfect.
There
Perfect.
we go.
Thank you. So Nate and I have an interesting relationship. He is my boss, but he's also a guy I've known adjacently for many years through a weird thing to say. This is a grown man, a mutual best friend.
Yeah.
And we've almost always avoided each other just through happenstance, one way or another. Either you could make the plans or I couldn't, or something just fell through. So I'm glad to have you on the program, Nate. Real quick, right off the gate, I found it fascinating that you have quite an interesting story. You were in the service for a number of years. You had substance issues that you've overcome to rise to where you're at now, and that's what fascinates me about you. So you're from the Pittsburgh area. Let's start right there.
Yeah. So I grew up mainly in up in Newcastle, about 40 minutes north. Grew up with my dad, born down in Beaver, Rochester. That's where my roots took me back to this mutual friend of ours.
Shout out to Beaver County.
But yeah, I'm a Pittsburgh area native. About 18, 19 years old, decided that I wanted to get out of here. Things weren't going too well. Shout out to Beaver County. And yeah, I just needed a change of pace. So as we were talking about, that's where like the military service came into play. Joined the Army around that time, still a knuckleheaded kid. All right, so yeah, then 18, 19 years old, decided to up and join the Army. I mean, it was pretty abrupt. Hanging out down in Rochester one night, and we were up to no good, and woke up still with that up to no good feeling. And like, it was strange. I was working at this bar at the time called O'Shea's. I was dishwashing, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, I need to change of pace. I need to do something. I know I'm not going to go back to school. And I get a text from this recruiter, like, you still interested in joining? The next day, my mom comes home, and I'm sitting there signing papers to go into the Army.
That was quick decision.
Quick turnaround, yeah. He must have needed some people.
So Army life was much different from the life you were living, I'm assuming.
Yes.
As far as just even basic structure.
Oh, 100%.
Was that a difficult adjustment?
I would say yes, but not as difficult for most. Growing up with my dad, that's who I lived with up in Newcastle. Him and my stepmom both worked at this place called YDC. You know what that is?
No, I don't.
So it was.
Is that a detention center?
Yes. Yep.
Youngstown or?
It was up in Newcastle.
Okay.
Yep. But same premises. So high level cases, things along those lines, things that could probably use prison time, but in the juvenile system. So a lot of that structuring from there came back to the house. You know what I'm saying? So the cleaning, the grounding, the restrictions of freedoms, that was kind of there growing up a little bit. So that transition, not too much. Okay. Like I thrive in structure, you know what I mean? Because I don't have to fucking think for myself. But yeah, I would say the biggest adjustment was not having that own sense of individuality, like basic training or whatever it may be. That's from 5 a.m. until you're going to sleep, you're being told what to do. And then sometimes in your sleep, you're woke up and being told what to do.
What was your field of specialty?
I was a weapons mechanic. So I fixed anything from 9mm pistols to 777 howitzers, which are the big boom booms. But that's not what I joined for. I joined to be a medic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I joined to be a medic. Went through all the training down in Fort Sam Houston, but let's just say my substance abuse was kicking off even in them early days, and I got reclassed to a different MOS for getting my second underage drinking down there.
You were struggling with alcohol?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. first off, I didn't know that about you. You wanted to be a medic,
Yep.
which it makes sense knowing your personality a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that on paper, the other job sounds so much cooler.
Yeah.
It sounds so much cooler. So you started drinking early then?
Yeah, I started drinking. To be honest, I probably not super early. Like, you know, I'm a member of a fellowship where, you know, I hear stories and some people are starting out 7, 8, 9 years old. But like my experimentation didn't start till about 16, 17. You know, I have some substance abuse issues with family members, so I think growing up it was something that was frowned upon in my eyes. Like I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to put myself or kids or whatever else through maybe situations that I went through. So I was like that straight edge. I'm not doing this, whatever it may be. And you know, I found that escape through a substance. That escape that we all try to find. That escape from the reality that we don't want to live. So then, yeah, you know, I can remember my first time, not drinking, but like getting drunk. And, you know, the story didn't go great. I think I threw up in a snowbank, fell asleep in there, woke up cold as hell like 2 hours later, but like that was cool. The next morning, like I was that life of that party.
At that age, you know, you got a lot of that cool factor
Yeah.
that's not cool. But the young kids especially like to brag about, oh, I got so fucked up last night.
Yeah.
I woke up with my pants down. You know, whatever stupid story. So from there, since you were the life of the party the next day.
Yeah.
That does nothing to help, like, put you on the right path.
Not at all.
That's negative encouragement.
I mean, it's negative encouragement. It's like negative reinforcement to the overall problem, which was that, you know, that age range, you're trying to find that sense of belonging. You're trying to find your in crowd. And like, to me, I think that the people that get put onto that wrong path, it's always for circumstances, but like it was always just a group of us trying to find our crowd. And that's the crowd we found.
I remember being that young and drinking and getting, for lack of a better term, fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I remember those days it was about, oh, how much could I drink? It didn't matter the outcome. So even if I was drunk, you know, to an acceptable level, you know, when people want to get drunk, that was never enough. You know, you just, oh, we're going to keep going, you know. And then being a big guy, it was always, John's a tank, he can drink it, blah, 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 blah. And honestly, I'm thankful I never struggled with alcohol abuse. I just didn't like it all that much.
Yeah.
Like, for me, the headaches were enough to stop that.
Yeah, headaches go away when you're drinking every day.
That's fair. That's fair. So it didn't stop when you got to the service.
Oh, no.
And even though your drinking was already hindering you on another job, still no stoppage.
No, this was 2010 during, you know, from where we've just talked about, and my drinking didn't stop until 2020. So there's a whole decade of trial and error and learning the hard way before, you know, the final realization was it's not Nate it's not ultimately the Army or whatever other outside circumstances. It's the drink that's the problem.
And I've heard you allude to this in the past, but when you have a run that long, it's not just luck and you doing all the right things. There has to be people that look the other way.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Like, even in my job nowadays, you know, I don't necessarily find myself looking the other way, but I find myself acknowledging situations, acknowledging the person and what they're doing, and then trying to, I can't prevent it. We all know that. The only person that can prevent it is the person. But I guess not let it get too bad in my realm. At the end of the day, like, yeah, I want to help somebody out, but yeah, I have to run a business in certain settings too.
And we all know, especially those of us that have dealt with addiction issues, you can't help someone who doesn't really want to help themselves.
No.
You know, until you decide to say, hey, that's it for me, I'm done. A million people can talk to you. It's not going to change
Like,
anything.
how many times have you, like, had the conversation, like, I mean, why can't you just quit? Why can't you put that down? Why can't you, you know, it's coming from a place of not understanding, you know. They think that, you know, I want to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and take a bunch of little mini bottles trying to make a shot just because I'm shaking. Like, who the fuck wants to do that? They think that it's a choice, and in certain matters, maybe it can be, but when you're in the grips of that, you're not deciding anything for yourself.
That's the truth. When you're down in the trenches, no matter what your struggle is,
Yeah.
until you decide it, like it does not matter what anybody has to say, what anybody thinks. Right now, I'm hurting. I got to get this monkey off my back before I can even do anything.
And like even I'm glad that's interesting you said that. Like even if the intent is to get the monkey off your back so you can start on with your day or start on with the good path that you created in those 5 minutes of waking up. As soon as that monkey just lifts a foot, you're not even thinking about those things anymore.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it gets into the pattern where you're dealing with a stressful situation, and even to think about how to accomplish or overcome that situation, you think, well, let me get a little high first. Let me get a little stoned or fucked up or whatever I need to get first before I can even think about this.
Because I mean, you like you just said, like your association there is to ease whatever fear. For me, it boils down to fear. So you have something stressful when that stress is causing fear, whether it be fear of failure, fear it doesn't work out, whatever it may be, and you have the ticket to ease that stress. But then at the same exact time, sometimes that ticket to ease the stress eases the motivation to do it, eases the drive.
It can dull who you are as a person.
Yeah.
You know, to put out your shine. But also, and like I've dealt with a lot of addiction issues. I've had close relationships with people in addiction. What I don't think they talk about is like how difficult it is to even like realize the steps you have to take in order to quit.
Yeah.
Like your whole life has to change. And I know everybody can do it. You know, it's I don't want to seem like I'm not. It's just the support for when people are in active addiction and are just giant pieces of shit. I don't think that gets talked about enough because we also need grace once we're out of that piece of shit mode, so to speak. Like I think that needs to be talked about more.
Well, I think what it boils down to, and I think that's why the fellowships are, one addict helping another addict, one alcoholic helping another alcoholic is, down to the reason that I'm more susceptible to understand and listen to somebody that has been in the same shoes as me. And it's a situation to where those people do have the grace because those people have empathy.
So are you referring to more like NAAA type situations?
Yes. Like I can go into there. Let's say that we're both in AA. We're both struggling. We both know the situations. We both know that we've both sat here and poured those mini bottles in the morning. Like we're building a bond maybe through our trials and tribulations and our stories and our struggles, but at the same exact time, we're showing that we can overcome that. When somebody's down deep, nobody wants to hear, I don't know, a therapist say something along those lines. Nobody wants to hear their mom or their dad or some authority figure saying, hey, you need to knock this up or this is the path that you're going to. You want to hear, hey, I didn't quit and this is what happened along those lines. This is what happened along those lines and here goes the hope, the walking, living, proving hope that you can overcome that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I had a very unique situation when it comes to NA or AA groups. I attended them while I was in a 3-quarter house years ago because that was what I had to do. And at the time, I did not have any drug issues. So it was very, I want to say counterproductive is what I'm going to use.
I mean, it was made punitive for you. You know what I mean?
I wasn't a fan. I used to go there and sit. And, I would try and be like, hey, I'm not going to talk this week. But over time, I had to start talking, and I didn't have any point of reference. So I ended up saying stuff that, like, wasn't always necessarily true. But I could see how they work for some people.
Yeah.
But that being said, once I got my struggles, once I received my award of struggles with meth, I didn't want to go to NA meetings. I didn't feel comfortable for some reason. Maybe it was because in the past I kind of made light of them. But I also decided one day and stopped cold turkey, which was incredibly difficult. And I used to think, hey, man, not that I'm better than them, but I didn't need those groups. But I got everything out of those groups from the people I had surrounding me.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that recently, that if I didn't have that group of people around me, loving me, essentially when I couldn't love myself, I would have never made it out of where I got out of from.
Yeah.
How long were you in your addiction before you decided, okay, I want to stop? Or successfully decided to stop?
2020.
2020?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The thought is always, the thought is never was never for me was I want to stop drinking. You know what I mean? The thought was never I wanted to quit. The thought was that if my life circumstances got better, then I wouldn't have a need to drink. Because in my eyes, I'm drinking for the problem. Not the fact that I'm having doctors and, licensed clinical social workers and people that practice for years in this stuff saying, no, this is a physically addictive substance, and that's not going to be the case no matter what circumstances you put yourself into. Like, unless Nate decides to stop, Nate's not going to stop. Like, that never really dawned on me. To be honest, like, my deciding factor to stop drinking isn't even all that impressive. It was after I moved back here, and I had got my job, same job I have right now, just at a lower scale, and I had stopped drinking for like I think a month when I moved back here. Like I was doing that geographical change where I was going to leave Colorado and move here and get a job and go back to school, and everything was going to be fine because I didn't have the idea that it wasn't me. You know what I mean? I didn't have that idea. I didn't know anything about, you move with yourself. So I'm sitting here and, I'm drinking on the weekends. It is what it is. And then I finally get put on to probation number 2 for my second DUI. And, Auntie decides to be Auntie and I can't drink at the house no more. So, like, I start doing sneaky shit. And, like, it was real, by the way, I can cuss on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. I just started doing real sneaky shit. And, it got to the point where I'm getting mini bottles at work, and a couple weeks later, I'm getting big bottles at work, and I'm drinking on the job. I can notice the pattern because I have the awareness of like all the past, the 10 years of bullshit that I dealt with. My boss, current boss still, was my boss then. And he is an active member in AA. So he's seeing the patterns, he's seeing the struggles, he's smelling the smells, and, he kind of planted the seed. And I remember one Monday I woke up, and I was shaking, dude. I was bad. And I knew if I had went to work that day, things would just be bad, but I knew I wasn't getting any more grace that I had got the week before. And I have to mention this part because you'll find it interesting. Like, I dozed back out, and I had this dream. We were in it's like a loft apartment. There was a whole bunch of people from my life, but we were all getting fucked up. No people were intermixed. Like, I had people from the Army, people from around here, and everybody's just getting screwed up. And I found myself sitting in this recliner, and I had this bottle of vodka, and I went to, like, drink it. And some guy, long, straggly-haired looking dude, like, striped, I think it was a striped polo, tan and white, like, turned around on this bar stool and was just like, please don't drink that, dude. And I woke up. And 6.5 hours later, I was in rehab.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It was weird. Like, I went to work. I spoke with that boss we were talking about. And,
This episode has been sponsored by Goat Grinder. Right now, go to goatgrinder.com, enter in IM20 to get 20% off your order.
All right, hey everybody. My name's Ron. I'm the vendor, owner of Goat Grinder, and this is the Inquisitive Minds podcast. We're sponsoring this forever now. We're going to give Johnny $1 million, so everybody watch this. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, so it's a grinder, sifter in a mason jar. This is your pressure band, keeps it all together. It's your top grinder, bottom grinder. When you're ready to grind up, slip it on there, give it a snug, throw in, I don't know, whatever you want, and then off center post, you don't smash everything in the middle, and then all your junk will fall into this handy dandy sifter, and then everything else will fall in here. I use it to make relish. So what happens is when I grind up all the, you get all your pickle stuff in here, but then, you don't have to have a fucking juicy hot dog. You dump out that extra sauce. And they do fit on larger regular mouth mason jars. I would sell them for $75. Someday I'll raise the price, but for now they're $75. I started out at $90, and then I came down. I should have stayed at fucking $90. I don't know why I'm giving everybody a break.
That's the work culture that I still attempt to embody because, I sat down with this guy and he didn't have any judgment, whatever it may be. He helped me get the help that I needed. And here I am now.
How long, because I'm dealing with this myself, how long before you, like, say after you went to rehab, how long before you started to feel like yourself again?
I think that's still a process for me. Because I think through all of it, I'm realizing that I never really knew who I was. So it's not necessarily me having to find myself again. It's me learning who Nate really is.
Okay.
Now, one thing about, these rooms that I keep and this fellowship I keep talking about, I don't think I have to be hidden about it, right? Like
No.
I'm a member of AA. I got into there, I jumped in headstrong and I started working these things in there called the 12 steps. And after going through and working those 12 steps, that's when I found a little bit of a different outlook on life. And that's when I was able to start working on myself now. Like I have two and a half years off the booze.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you. And I'm finding myself in like individual therapy, talking about who Nate is and what my individual value systems are, and like working through trauma. And there's some conflicting things that I'm hearing within therapy and then within like fellowship and things like that. But that's the beauty of it because I'm an individual now that doesn't have to follow each path. In the Army they always talk about, because you get a lot of shitty leaders in the Army, so like. You could take all the bad qualities in a shitty leader, but they're going to have that one good. And then you just take all 15 of those good and bad leaders and you make who you want to be. And that's kind of what I do, I guess, with life. I can, at this point right now, I'm trying not to pass judgment in situations. I try to take the good and the bad of everything and then see how I can project that in my own way.
So I know that you served just under 9 years in the service. When did your service come to completion?
2019.
2019.
Yeah.
So you were discharged from the service and still had the issues you were dealing with.
I was discharged from the service because of the issues.
Oh, now was it what are the terms?
Like an other than honorable discharge?
Yeah, was it an honorable discharge?
I got an honorable discharge.
Okay.
Yeah. Due to I can do a quick synopsis. I can recap it real quick.
Yeah.
So by 2019, I had a DUI already. Coming back home, I came back home. My family met my daughter for the first time under unfortunate circumstances because my grandfather had died. The unit I was in was currently coming back from, I think they were in Afghanistan at the time. And we can't go on leave, anything along those lines. They made an exception for me. So I come back here. I'm hitting that. I had just dropped off our mutual friend.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hitting that 79, 376 split to go towards the airport, 90 miles an hour, 2-year-old in the back seat. Scraped the car coming around that bend. No accident, thank God, but still got to the airport. Damage on the car. I think I'm in great shape, trying to get things out, open the trunk, close the trunk. Police was right there. Long story short, I didn't fly out that day. So that was 2017, but that carried on all the way up until my discharge. There was always in that back of my mind that I'm getting kicked out the military, but cocky, ego Nate is like, no, I'm staying in. So I had the opportunity to do that. However, I didn't do any of the legwork, aka just stop drinking. to make that a reality. So within these 2 years, I did a bunch of IOPs. I had got the opportunity to go to rehab, but I didn't need rehab. But the thing is like kind of what this started with when you said people kind of just turn the other cheek. I still held my same stature. If anything, my physical ability kind of went down, but that comes with drinking. But I was still able to perform a job. I was still able to. I ran an orderly room at the time, and I became a platoon sergeant, and I got the highest like NCOER, which is like the rating within my company, all while getting kicked out and being this alcoholic piece of shit. And that didn't do anything but just drive my ego. So long story short, there was this thing called a military separation board, and that's where I would have went to go in front of a panel of officers, and they have all my negativity in front of them, and I have to talk about why I should stay in service based upon those factors. I had people there, I had letters of recommendation, and I was passed out in my living room on my couch on Monday from a bender that started that Saturday. Sergeant Major came to my house, somehow woke me up, made me go there, and long story short, that was like the final straw. And that didn't even stop me, you know what I mean? Like after that entire night when I went back home, I was teed off because it was 12:07 if I remember, and the liquor store had just closed. 2 days later, I was still blowing numbers at noon. I got restricted to the barracks for 60 days, so I'm still paying for my apartment. I can't see my kid who's in Denver at the time. Just an absolute mess. But, through it all, I was able to get that honorable due to some circumstances being in for that long, because at the time that was about 8 years. And yeah, that's what led to it. But, at the time, like the mindset wasn't, I didn't have that mindset to know what I needed to do. I didn't have the mindset to know like I can ask people for help. That was the biggest struggle. If I would have just swallowed some pride and asked some people for help, I'd still be in the military today. That was never a thought process of getting out.
And so you planned on being a career
I planned on
military man.
100%.
Okay.
Didn't even plan on going in. Didn't even know I was active duty going in, but damn sure was going to make it a career because I was good at it. It was easy.
You said that you mentioned Afghanistan. So can you tell me about your little overseas journeys?
Yeah. So when I finally got into the real army, as we call it, I was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. 2 months into there, we found out we were going to Afghanistan. And I can't lie, it wasn't a bad experience. It wasn't a.
I've talked to people about going there. I want to take this time to ask you some things. When you found out you were going to Afghanistan, what were your thoughts?
So I was young. I had just got out of all this training that extended training because I had to do 2 different MOSs. So really, it was like, this is what I signed up for.
Okay.
Yeah, that was more along those thoughts. I signed up to do this. There's good money into it. I knew I was in a support MOS, so like I wasn't in the, hey, I'm going to go out here and know that I'm in the line of fire at all time. Like, you know what I mean? I knew
so there wasn't
circumstances
any
go
type
there.
of like
No.
hesitation or fear, or any of that?
No.
Okay.
No. Now, if it would have been Afghanistan 5 years earlier, I couldn't answer that one. I knew what was going on over there. I knew what we were getting ourselves into. The job, even when I was there, I drove. I was a gunner on convoys missions, on security missions, like every other day. So we were outside the wire. We were, you got to see the culture, which was great. But luckily, we did not have to experience some of the things that you hear. You know what I mean? Some of the things that a lot of my, brothers and sisters had to experience. What's
it like when you're overseas at base compared to stateside?
When you're overseas at base would be essentially, okay, that Allegheny Sports Complex that I drove by coming here. You got one of those and you're restricted to that. Now it's weird because depending on the size of the base, like I was at Kandahar Airfield, so it was a massive base. There's multiple different countries. All your workers are from different countries. There's no it's just a melting pot. You know what I mean? Different armies, different everything. Now, at the same exact time, you're in that bubble too. So you're more structured. You know, if I'm not we weren't on the road, it was, you know, you woke up, you went down and worked for however long, you went to the gym, you ate, you watched a movie, and rinse and repeat. So yeah, I mean, it's once you get into the swing of that, it's not bad.
And you mentioned some security details, but what did you guys do over there as far as like an official capacity?
Okay, so like say that I'm on Kandahar Airfield and you are down in Zangabad. It's a hour and a half drive. So Kandahar Airfield was more along the lines of like base operations, and then you have your forward operating bases, which are your ground soldiers. You know what I mean? Your infantry, your field artillery, stuff like that. We provided them their supplies. So essentially, contract out jingle truck drivers or 18-wheel truck drivers, load them up with supplies, and we provided the security to make sure nobody took that supplies.
Okay.
And then on a couple capacities, we were on the personal security detachment for our battalion colonel. So there were situations to where we just escorted him if he had to do base operations or something along those lines.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting because you hear about people going overseas, and I don't know, as someone who's never been in the service, all you think about is, oh, they're going over there to fight. You don't think about the day-to-day and structure and what needs to happen in order just for the ability to fight.
Yeah. I mean, you have that because I'm talking like frontline war right now, but then before that, let's take a step back, and I'm looking at a map right now so nobody thinks I'm just absolutely losing my mind. So a lot of people will go to Kuwait, and, you know, Kuwait could be readiness to go over to Iraq or to Afghanistan or something along those lines. So there's a lot of different pieces other than, hey, let's just go over here and kill the bad guy.
I think, at least in my head, every time I hear someone going over, I picture Vietnam. I'm like, oh, they're going over to fight, and they're going to be in the jungles or the sands or wherever. So that's interesting to get that perspective here. So you get out of the service, you're back in Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh area. You're still going through this. You get a job. How did you acquire the job when you're in the active addiction? That's what I'm curious about.
So when I moved back here, like I said, I was on that pink cloud of doing better. So I got enrolled into school. I was using since I got an honorable discharge, I was still able to keep educational benefits and things along those lines. So I was using educational benefits. And I just needed a part-time, dead-end, run-in-the-mill job. And nothing was taking me. And my aunt couldn't understand why, and I knew why, because I still had that flashing DUI that I had hidden in my back pocket. But, I ended up getting in with the job that I have now. And I didn't know the capacity of what they were at. I thought I was just going to be working in some little warehouse that was conveniently located only a mile away from my house. But I didn't know the thought process was to grow into what they needed to. So I hate to be that right place, right time type of individual, but it was a lot of right place, right time. A lot of right place, right time, and then, just taking, it's not really a leap of faith for me, but just sitting through the not getting raises or sitting through the why are we doing this and the not understanding why, to be there a couple years later and being like, okay, this is coming to fruition. Yep.
Yeah, I see you every day. Honestly, you always have a look of, I've got 17 things to do and only time to do 11 of them. You run around there, and you do this thing where you talk and keep moving that I'm a particular fan of. You're like, hey, yeah, on Thursday I'll be there, and just steadily walking to your next appointment the whole time.
It's a little rude, my bad.
No, because I get it.
Yeah.
You got a lot going on, especially with the job that it is. Most of us only know our position and not realize all the moving parts that go into it and all that.
And that's hard for me to. That's a struggle of mine and hard to understand, just for the sole fact of, this has changed so much since I've been employed here, that I don't know what it's like to be just on one individual level anymore. I never was like when I was up in the front, I was always understanding what was going on into the back, and I was always trying to understand why we did what we did. So now, like when I'm trying to help somebody out, I have to. I don't want to say dumb it down, but I really have to break it down in my head to understand what they are understanding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to give them their specialized
Yes.
area the correct proper. Because if you're trying to deal with that issue with one specific problem, you know there's a problem here, there's a problem there, but that person's not going to not even comprehend. It doesn't relate to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. I don't need to hear about the problem behind me and the problem for me. I know a lot of people, and I'll just use myself as an example, for lack of being rude, that's your problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if something's going on back here or something's going haywire up there, that's not my problem. I can't fix it. I don't know enough to. So when you're looking for solutions, when people get explanations to deal with other things, it's just rough to hear sometimes.
Yeah, 100%.
If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're trying to drive a point, then why are you giving them irrelevant shit? Now, granted, that's my thought process. It's like, you didn't do this, so this person couldn't do that, and ultimately, I fail. That's how I'm thinking, and to regurgitate that sometimes, like it's easier for me to regurgitate that down to the hourly employee. It doesn't go so well with the management staff, especially my AGM management staff, since we have this little particular relationship too. A lot of expectations translate down there. A lot of, if I was having a conversation, let's say with you, it's not going to come out as you should know that. And it does with management. And like, that's something I'm trying to work at, because it's not everybody's thinking the same. I've not toot my own horn, but I got to where I got to for maybe some sort of unique characteristic. And I can't expect everybody to think that way too. You know what I mean?
I do. And I want to touch on something else too. You said right place, right time. I appreciate that and understand it, but I don't like people saying that, especially about themselves, because I feel like you're discrediting what you do, you know, and the fact that not only did you have the ability to keep showing up, you had the ability to problem solve. You're obviously a good supervisor. Like, you don't just keep getting promotions. No. I'll say, if you continue to be the same shitty person. So you've obviously been improving and working on stuff. And I don't like people saying that, because I feel like it takes away from who they are.
No, and I thank you for pointing that out, because that's actually, like, mentally, that's a struggle of mine, is giving myself credit, gratitude, feeling good about Nate. But I'm learning to try to do that lately. But I think a lot of that just comes from, as we were talking about before, like, I was able to excel while still sitting here drinking and things along those lines. So if I was able to do that, then whenever I sit here in my sobriety, like, I never give myself enough credit, because it's like, you could do that then, you should be doing more now. And breaking that mindset, especially when it's all ego and pride driven and things along those lines, that's hard. You know what I mean? That's real hard to take a step back, and for a man too, to try to learn how to love himself.
Yeah, no, that's a correct thing to say. It's very difficult. Because, I don't know about this generation, but growing up, men, you get it put on your back. You're the man of the house, or that's man's work. You don't have time, or you're not specifically told to process your feelings.
No.
See how you feel about yourself every day. So that's something I've worked on trying to do myself. Like, because it's easy to say, oh, yeah, I'm doing this. Well, you should have been doing that. Okay. But even if I created the hurdle that's in my way, the fact that I was able to overcome that hurdle, we have to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, don't sit there on your laurels every day and wake up. Yeah, I did this. You got to keep trying to improve, but don't let that stop you from looking back and appreciating what you've come through.
Yeah.
I've been on a journey myself, and I asked you about feeling like yourself, because it really recently, it's only been like the past 2 weeks that I've started to feel like, I'm myself again. Like, some of that has to do with working. Some of that has to do with creating content, stuff like that. But once you get there, I feel so fucking relieved.
Yeah.
You know, like we talk when you see each other in the morning. I try and give a legitimately honest response when people say, "How are you feeling?" And it's in general because most people are like, "Oh, work, another day, living the dream,"
Yeah.
bullshit. When I say to someone, "I'm doing phenomenal," at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm fucking great.
You can tell it though too. Your expression is that same exact way. Everybody else is dragging through. Why do I have to be here? I'm feeling great. I'm better than I deserve to be.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
like,
I say that many
yeah.
times, way better than I deserve.
but then at the same time, you'll be like, I feel like shit right now. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I try and be reasonable and not, because I want to take inventory of the whole day of like my whole life. So, how are you feeling? Phenomenal. Why? You're at work. Well, I have a job. It right now it allows me to provide for my family. I have a family.
Yeah.
Like you can just keep piggybacking on stuff instead of taking the one specific thing. We all know that one person, and no one's specific at work, but we all know that one person at work that everything you ask them is just fucking miserable.
Yeah.
No one wants to be around someone like that.
No.
Good Lord. So, Nate, interesting that you mentioned, so you're assistant GM and you are in a relationship.
Yep.
And it didn't come from working together.
No.
You met her in AA?
Yeah. So I met her. I met her through my sponsor. We started going to a couple meetings. That's when I had just got out of rehab and started figuring out what AA was. So I did exactly what everybody tells you not to do. And I jumped right into that relationship within the first year, and like I can't say it was great.
Real quick, I was clean less than a month when I met Stephanie, so high five to that.
There we go.
There was a meme I shared to only specific friends, but I'm going to put it up on the video when there's time. But this is essentially how me and her met. And you guys will see that.
We're breaking the odds.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be honest, like we were on the same journey. She has about 6 months more time than me. So shout outs to Brittany, the 13th stepper.
Congratulations, Brittany. I'm sure there's something behind the 13th stepper. What is?
Yeah, so basically there's 12 steps in AA or NA, and the 13th step is fucking the newcomer. Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay.
But yeah, we clicked. We were on the same journey. We were bouncing, our struggles off. She had been in and out of the rooms a little bit, so she was helping me understand certain things. She was helping me kind of just to figure out that it was okay to not be okay.
Say that again for the people in the back.
It is okay to not be okay. But yeah, it kind of hit off. She didn't really blend into my own individual recovery. She wasn't trying to tell me how to work steps or whatever it may be. And I think it was only like maybe 3 or 4 weeks into us meeting. She was looking for a different job. Of course, we were hiring. She came down in some flip-flops, some tank tops, and some shorts. And I remember at the time, the owner of the company hired her right there on the spot. So we worked on the same team at the time. I don't want to admit it, but she will physically outwork me, run circles around me.
She's a workhorse.
She definitely is, and she prides off of it.
I've never seen her walk casually.
No, I remember I think it was maybe the second time we walked to work. I was like, listen, you don't smoke meth anymore. You don't have to walk like this. And, I can remember this one gentleman who stood about 6'6" was jogging to try to keep up with her. So that is a common thing. But yeah, it's as much as it sucks sometimes, and as much as, eventually we will be on separate paths, same company, but it's enjoyable. We're able to bounce things off one another. We now finally have a system to where if we're driving home, that's fine, but we don't talk about work at home, and we're just making work with the circumstances that we have.
That's a good call, because that's what I was wondering about, because a lot of times your work will bleed
Yeah.
into a home when, especially when your partner doesn't work with you and you're like, oh, you should have seen fucking Tammy today. And I don't mean Tammy, but like you should have seen
Yeah.
Tammy today. And how do you guys just decided on that? Or was it a problem at first?
It wasn't what, like, as far as
Like talking about work outside of work.
that was decided on when it kind of became a problem. Because we realized that there was nothing like outside of that we were building on. We kind of stopped building on ourselves. It was, I wouldn't say necessarily consuming, but we weren't having that human interaction that we all strive for. You know what I mean? And then plus too, that's problematic for me. I've always been, I wouldn't say a workhorse, but it gets very engulfing. So I'm always trying to talk about something or maybe try to figure something out, or like if I get a spur of the moment idea, like we have to deal with it right then and there. But I mean, just like anything else, like within a relationship, it's kind of just, we decided to set that boundary, and see if it, improves anything. And it did, so why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Nate, I normally ask people just on this show in general if they've had any paranormal experiences. I take it you don't.
I do not.
Okay.
I was thinking about that before here, but I don't.
There's no right or wrong
Yeah,
answer.
yeah. I don't. I can't say that. Not necessarily along the lines of not believing or something along that, but yeah, I just haven't.
You know what? That brings me to an interesting question. First off, are you a religious person?
No, I'd say spiritual over religion.
Okay. Does that come into play with your sobriety?
That was found, or I wouldn't say found, that was reinforced in sobriety. I always thought spirituality and religion had to be a thing. Of course, I grew up predominantly in a Christian household. Dad didn't really go to church, but mom and grandma and stuff did. So I had those roots growing up. And then I was that angsty asshole that, I don't believe in God, or I don't believe in whatever it may be, so I'm not going to go to church. You shouldn't go to church. You're a bigot for going to church.
That's a leap.
Yeah. But then, I don't know. I got a concept that there's no way that there's nothing. It's, for me, it's real simple. When I go to sleep, I don't know I'm sleeping. So something happens when I die. And I couldn't put something to that. Like I couldn't just believe that it was, Jesus Christ, because there's things I don't agree with. And I never branch out to anything else. And then, through recovery and things along those lines, like I learned that you don't have to pinpoint it. You just, I was afraid to go into rooms because of, the God word. And then, I heard a God of your understanding. And that was big for me because it's like I can create whatever concept that works for me. So yeah, I mean, it's, to me, they're hand in hand. Not to sound like somebody in AA or NA, but like when my spiritual condition is lacking, it shows in other avenues. And when it's not, like when I'm sitting there and I'm full of gratitude and I'm just enjoying being alive and existing with other godly people, things are good.
That's fair. Nate, I want to ask you, because I always ask guests that come on for a piece of advice, and it doesn't have to be about anything specific, just whatever you're honing in on. So that being said, do you have a piece of advice you would give to someone listening?
It's really simple, but talk about your problems. When something comes about, I guess, in your head, a struggle, don't sit in yourself with that. And this could be anything. You don't have to sit there and seek a certain validation. You're not searching for an answer, but you're just putting out what you're struggling with to more than one person. Don't just look for somebody to co-sign your bullshit. And then what that can do is that brings awareness when this stuff comes back around. And then at the same exact time, that makes you feel like you're not so alone in dealing with this complex thing that we call life. I just pulled that out, but it has to be something sincere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Nate, I know you're not in the entertainment realm, but is there anything you want to promote?
I really don't have anything. I wish I would have thought about that.
Okay.
I mean, I could figure something out and we can go ahead and put something in there, but no, I don't have anything other than the podcast that I'm on.
Oh.
This is Nate Booker, and you're listening to the Inquisitive Minds podcast.
When I put this out, it's going to be all your face because I smiled too big and I'm lacking too much in the front there to show people. No, thank you for coming on.
Oh, this was awesome, dude.
Yeah, man. Absolute pleasure. Guys, go to goatgrinder.com. Check out the sale they're having there. Wonderful product. Until next time, thanks for listening.
This is the Inquisitive Minds Podcast.